paper is titled Kālī's Play with Mahākāla, Dialogic Ontological Accounts in the Tantras of Bengal Kālīkula, which I'll be demonstrating with some of my paintings, paintings which I composed in course of these years. Well, to begin with, just I'm briefly summarizing what Alexis Sanderson, his observations about the emergence of Shaktism as an independent canon from within the canon of Shaivite non-dualism. So going into the Atimarga stream of Shaivism, like when we moved to Vidyapitha, the more esoteric turn it takes, the more it inclines towards esotericism, the more it gets aligned to goddess traditions, and there goddesses emerge in more, in a more prominent position than Shiva itself. So, in the beginning, let's take with the previous slide. So, say, for example, in the beginning, when you at the stage of the Shaiva Siddhanta, yes, Sadashiva, the solitary figure of Sadashiva, of course, Shakti is there, but not always in a female form by his side. Then you move on to Bhairavas, single Bhairavas with clusters of Shaktis around him, female goddesses or yoginis around him. Then you move more towards the left side. There you see Bhairava and the goddess sitting side by side, and the icons are of equal size. The more you move towards this esoteric aspect, the more leftward, then the goddesses tend to rise above Bhairava. And finally, there are solitary goddesses or Eka Viras. So, what can be the metaphysical ground for this? Now, I would just like to quote a verse from the Mahanaya Prakash of Trivandrum. Now, it says, how from within this canon of Shiva Paramya, without rejecting it, there is another tradition of Shakti Paramya, that without rejecting Shiva Paramya, you go to Shakti Paramya. This Mahanaya Prakash, it says that of the supreme I-hood or Purna Hanta, the supreme consciousness of Aham, subjective consciousness of a Shiva, even within that, there is, by subtle distinction, a higher stage, and that is the state of Kālī, where the Lord himself loses his way. That is, Kālī is that core of Shiva's consciousness which is even, which even Shiva himself cannot objectivate. Now, keeping this in mind, now, we all have seen what Abhinava Gupta has established in Tantra Loka, that above the scale, the scheme of 36 tattvas, there is Parama Shiva at the 37th. But in his Tantrochaya, which is more Krama-oriented, even above the 37th Parama Shiva, there is the goddess Chanda Yogeshwari, who is the 38th tattva. Now, I'm just skipping to the Bengal thing. Well, what we need to keep in mind is that, although there is no ground to question the antiquity of Tantrism as if we use the term esoteric, pardon me, I'm using the term, esoteric religious system, which is, outside the Vedic fold, that was, we can't question its antiquity, but the formation of the textual canon called Tantra was, of course, this textual canon, the written form. It was, of course, a later phenomenon owing to the intervention of the Smarta authorities. Coming to the texts of Tantra from Bengal, first of all, these are primarily ritual texts, although fragmented and scattered accounts of ontological discourses might be traced. Now, although these are fragmented and meager in amount, yet worth consideration. And here, we might trace two fundamental tendencies. The first is the assimilation of the Sankhya model of Prakriti and Purusha, the Sankhya doctrine of Prakriti and Purusha, with, however, a significant departure. What is it? In Sankhya, we see that there is a conscious Purusha and unconscious Prakriti. The two are different. This dualism has been reduced to the non-duality of Shiva and Shakti. Although terms like Purusha and Prakriti are used, the implications become different. Because now, when rendered non-dual with Purusha or Shiva, then Prakriti ceases to be unconscious, and although she is active or she is dynamic, she is nevertheless pure consciousness, and both Nirguna and Saguna. Now, the Niruttara Tantra, as it describes Kālī, Prakriti personified as Kālī, that Shiva Shakti is twofold, both Nirguna and Saguna. As Nirguna, she is Param Brahma Sanatani, and as Saguna, she creates the universe. Now, accepting the inseparable non-existence of both Shivahood and Shaktihood in the supreme state of the Absolute, the metaphor which is employed is that of a Chanaka, a gram. As you see, in a Chanaka or a gram, there are two halves which are which are joined to each other, which are combined, inseparably associated. Similarly, in the supreme state, Shiva and Shakti are inseparable. But the interesting point is that the ultimate whole, where Shiva and Shakti become non-dual, has been in the Bengal Tantras, which is Shakti in orientation. This whole has been identified as Kālī. Kālī is the ultimate oneness of both Shiva and Shakti. Now, like I'm quoting a verse from the Nirvana Tantra Patala 2, in the Satyaloka Nirakara, well, there's the translation I'm reading out. In the supreme abode resides she, means Kālī, who combines both Shiva and Shakti, and when it's time for creation, she splits into two. Kālī splits into Shiva and Shakti. And, well, now here we trace the Shakti Paramya, which gradually emerges in Tantras of Bengal. And then, we now arrive at the secondary primary motive in the ontological discourses. Now, a significant number of texts, although of later date, unfold relics of a unique philosophical system, which might once have been the core. Oh yeah, please move on. Yes, this is the Chanakakara state. You see two profiles, Shiva and Shakti, but they're forming complete whole, and that is the face of Kālī. Next one. This is a wash painting. This how Kālī, she contains Shivahood within herself, and that she projects into Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. The next slide. Well, I'll be coming to it. Now, the second motive is that if you look at the Shakti Sangama Tantra, a 16th century later text, but nevertheless of great importance, that at the time of dissolution, Kālī, ultimate pralaya, this Mahapralaya, Kālī, who exists with Shiva and Shakti combined in herself, she observes her own reflection in her own Shunya-like nature. And from that reflection, her own reflection, she creates Shiva. Mind it is a Shakta text. Shakti is in superior position. She creates Shiva out of her Shunya nature. This motive is also like you might trace it in the Yogini Tantra. And even the Kakaradi Kālī Sahasranama, you see that Maha-Nirguna and Parama-Shunya Kālī. And because she is Maha-Nirguna, she is Param-Shunya, she is black. This Kālī creates pulsations within herself, and from that she creates Mahākāla. Now, in other words, although these accounts do not contradict the doctrine of Shiva-Shakti non-duality, yet the Shakta spirit drives them to identify the undivided state of wholeness as singularly Shakti. Now, pardon? No, let the slide remain. Now, well, this opens up a wide range of questions as to the ontological status of Mahākāla Bhairava. First of all, with Shiva as Mahākāla born from Kālī, how to explain the relation between the two as that of Shakti and Shaktiman? For we know that in the Agamic tradition, Shiva is Shaktiman and Shakti is Shakti, and the two are like undivided. If Shiva is born from Shakti, then how to explain the relation? There seems to be a missing gap. Well, now, we might trace the find the answer in a text, Sarvollasa, by Sri Sarvananda Natha from 16th century. He says that Prakriti and Purusha exist in a state of oneness like that of a gram, and owing to their non-duality, some call it singularly Prakriti and some call it singularly Purusha, because the two are synonymous now. And when merged into Shakti, Shiva is called Mahākāla, and when merged into Shiva, Shakti is called Mahākāli. So you have one complete whole. And the Shakta texts, they identify this complete whole as Mahākāli primarily, and Shiva is separately recognized only when a distinction is made in it. Now, the Sarvollasa Tantra also says that this Shakti, having attained the state of duality, becomes Purusha. Again, in the state of non-duality, she is Shakti again. Secondly, what is the ontological and soteriological implication of Shiva in his exclusive role as Mahākāla Bhairava? So, first of all, we consider the literal meaning of Kala as time. So Mahākāla would be great time, combining all Khanda Kalas. Now the Mahanirvana Tantra says that after the great dissolution, Mahākāla devours all the entire universe, and then Mahākāla in turn is devoured by Kālī. Kālī devours Mahākāla. Remember, the devouring of Mahākāla is also there in the Krama system, but the Krama, Mahākāla is not necessarily the Bhairava of Kālī, except for Shivananda Sod. But in the Bengal tradition, Mahākāla is the Bhairava of Kālī herself, and she devours her own Bhairava. Now, the motive of Kālī's devouring Mahākāla has been furnished with, now this is from the Mahanirvana Tantra. Now this motif of Kālī's devouring of Mahākāla has been furnished with deeper philosophical interpretations in the living, like the living traditions of the traditions, which have been articulated in textual form in the 19th century. Why 19th century, not before? That's a different question. Now I'm just summing up like a few of them. So Bijay Krishna Chattopadhyay, a charismatic saint of 19th century Bengal, now he says that Mahākāla is Akshara Atman, that is, when the self, it is aware of itself as I, aham, and when this awareness of self is suspended, when it is the complete state of nirvana, where the self loses its own like awareness of itself, pure bliss, the transcendental indeterminate self, that is Kālī. Again, when it comes down to the determinate self, like the determinate selfhood, it is Mahākāla, and when this is transcended, she is in the state of pure bliss, undeterminate, then she is Kālī, Mahākāli, black, transcendent. And well, we now come to Shiva Chandra Vidyarnav, the guru of Sir John Woodruff. How he looks at this point. Interestingly, he identifies Prakriti as Satchidananda and Prakriti the source of liberation. And Purusha, shockingly, Purusha in this system is a Vikriti of Prakriti, completely breaking the Sankhya hierarchy. Purusha is the Vikriti of Prakriti and is the source of bondage. And what he says, that when it is the time for liberation, what does Shakti do? She subjugates Purusha under her right foot. But she doesn't dissolve him completely. Why? Because since she is a dynamic energy, she is always involved in the play of creation. This play continues even in the state of liberation. But then, in the state of liberation, this world play is not something inducing bondage, but it is a play of bliss, play of ananda, play of chidananda within the nature of Shakti. Mahākāla is there, the creative phenomenon, but he is kept subdued under her feet. Now, Shiva Chandra, he quotes a verse from the Nirvana Tantra that Purusha is the right side and Shakti is the left. So when the two are in an equal position, it is the state of bondage. In the state of liberation, this Vama Shakti, she awakens and she absorbs the Dakshina half, so that both the Dakshina and the Vama half are Shakti alone, and Purusha is subjugated, and then she is Dakshina Kālī. That because she has conquered the Dakshina half, that is why she is the Bengal Dakshina Kālī, and this is the form you can see all like everywhere in Bengal. Like my own Gurudeva, his own observations about it, that when we say Shiva, the Ikara in Shiva comes from Shakti, the Ichcha Shakti. Now, Shiva Shakti Ayukto Yadi Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitam, like we all know it. And when she has, put this Ikara in the Shava and made him into Shiva, but when the play of creation is over, what she does, she withdraws this Ikara back into herself, withdraws the Shivahood of Shiva, and then Shiva is reduced to a corpse, and she is standing upon the corpse. In the iconography of Kālī, as you can, next slide. Yeah, she has withdrawn the Shivahood and he has been turned into a corpse. This painting was made under my Guru's instruction. Well, and then, having absorbed the Shivahood of Shiva, she alone is both Shiva and Shakti, and as such, she is Purna Brahma Sanatani. Now, well, a problem is that it becomes apparently difficult to reconcile all these diverse positions because they seem to contradict the basic doctrine of the agamas. But again, how to gel all these diverse explanations together, that is to the living traditions. Because it becomes difficult that if Mahākāla is time, then how to, how to interpret him as Aksharatman. Aksharatman apparently has nothing to do with time. Again, as a creative phenomenon, how to negotiate with the explanation which says that Shiva is the Aham Svarupa. This is again these missing links are upon the living traditions to fill. Now, the Shakti Sangama Tantra, which I quoted above, now it's a canonical, although it's a late text, it's an attempt to build for Kālīkula a huge canon by incorporating from diverse systems, which also includes the Srividya system and an interpretation of the Shakti Sangama Tantra by Sri Kālī Charan Pant. He was from Varanasi. Now, as he interprets it, now the entire hierarchical scale, the Kālī is the ultimate Shunya above, Mahākāla is her reflection, then Tara, Kāmakala, Tripura Sundari, and finally Kameshwara, and he is Shiva Tattva. And there comes the entire scheme of 36 Tattvas. So within the greater hierarchy of this cosmic scheme, the whole Trika system has been put in a very lower position here. Now again, how to explain the whole Shunyavada in Kālīkula? Well, we have no clue to it, because when we see that Kālī is creating Mahākāla out of a reflection, Kālī as Shunya, what are the philosophical tools with which to interpret it? Unfortunately, we have been left with nothing, because all these are owing to this extreme tendency to maintain a secrecy in the living traditions. These couldn't be brought out. Now, some estimations we might make here that, well, we might draw some parallel with Buddhist, like a handful of Buddhist texts, because the Tantras of Bengal were in a constant negotiation with the Buddhist tradition of Nepal. And we don't know whether at all there was any connection with the Kashmiri tradition. Of course, well, again, the lack of this absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. And there were constant negotiations through Nepal between Bengal and this Kashmirian tradition. Now, well, I am drawing this from Buddhist text. Now, this Advaya Vajra Sangraha. There is a poem Prema Panchaka which says that Shunyata is the bride and the reflection is bridegroom, Shunya and Upaya. Now, without the bridegroom, the bride is dead. And if the bride is separated from the bridegroom is in a state of bondage. So, the two come to the Guru, and the Guru gives them the stage of Sahaja. The Sahaja, where the two are in a state of equilibrium. But we don't know how this whole thing translates into a Shakta metaphysics when imported into the Kālīkula text, or whether this passed from the Kālīkula thing to the Buddhism. We have no clue to it. Like which way was the traffic? Now we come to the icon of Dakshina Kālī. Please turn to the next slide. Well, this is a Krama doctrine of the, this painting is based on the Mahanaya Prakasha, the Vyoma Vameshwari, Khechari, Bhuchari, Samhara Bhakshini, and Raudreshwari, and at the center you have Kālī combining all the 5 chakras. And this, Khaganandanath, Purvanandanath, Meshanandanath, Meenanandanath have been depicted here. Yeah, please turn to the next slide. Yeah, here you see the Bengal, the popular iconography of Dakshina Kālī in Bengal, where she is depicted as engaged in Viparita Rati with Mahākāla. So below you have Shavarupi Shiva, above it Bhairava, and above that Kālī. Now, why is Bhairava above this Shavarupi Shiva? Sadashiva Mahapreta. Now, the Bhairava tradition, according to its own belief, it believes itself to be superior to the Siddhantika tradition, and Sadashiva is the deity of the Siddha. Well, the Shaiva Siddhanti. So, Bhairava is above the corpse of Sadashiva. And Kālī, although she is non-dual with Shiva, the sexual imagery implies a non-duality. Although she is non-dual with Shiva, yet this non-duality is not horizontal but vertical. Kālī is above Shiva. She is enjoying Mahākāla from above. Mahākālena cha samam viparita rataturam. She is engaged in viparita rati with Mahākāla. And please turn to the next slide. Yeah. In later stages of development of this icon, in place of this one Shava or one Bhairava, the number of Shavas have been multiplied, but it also evolved into it incorporated from the Srividya iconography. So you have Pancha Preta, you have Shat Preta, and finally Sapta Preta. In the Krama Sadbhava, Krama text, you have the description of Kālī as Sapta Pretasana, Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Ishvara, Sadashiva. Well, in the Bengal tradition, it's Parashiva. In the Arghya Chakra, in the 5 chakras, Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Ishvara, Sadashiva, Parashiva here. And then above you have Bhairava. And in some secret yogic systems, she even penetrates beyond Bhairava. She transcends Bhairava to the Saptadashi Kala. That is a very esoteric thing and can be explained here. She is transcending even Bhairava above the Sahasrara Chakra. So here Kālī, although Dakshina Kālī icon seated on the Sapta Pretasana thing, there are textual references to it, but iconic depictions are hard to find, so I just made one here, attempted to make one. Now, what happens, unfortunately, when these fragmented discourses, all what we have discussed till now are we don't have any well-formed textual account. All these are trying to combine all fragmented things together. Now, all these fragmented discourses do not suffice to comprehend a complete philosophical system. Besides, the process of canon building involves incorporation from other systems so that the core system tends to get diluted a little. For example, my own parampara, the Tirthanatha parampara, I belong to it. Now, we have the mantra of Parama Brahma. So, here, the Upanishadic the doctrine of Brahma comes in. However, there is always it always involves a dialogue with the core doctrine of Kālīkula. The doctrine of Brahma, it gets a little modified when incorporated into the tradition of Kālī. And in the concept of Kālī, you again come here to a Shakti-Shaktimana model when the relation between Kālī as Shakti and Paramar Brahma as Shaktimana is like explained. For example, in this commentary on this Mahanirvana Tantra, like by my Parameshti Gurudeva. Well, I shouldn't be taking his name, like neither did I name my Guru. Now, so both the Shunya-oriented tradition of Kālī and this Advaita-oriented Brahmavada from the Upanishad, they come into a dynamic dialogue, like when they are, incorporated in the textual canon of Kālīkula. Thank you.